think of when you think of a kart racer? More than likely, you think of red plumbers and green dinosaurs running around the track throwing shells at each other until a blue one comes up right before the finish line and you end up screaming, "Are you f***ing kidding me?" Kart racers are iconic to the video game genre as they are easily accessible to all ages and work great as pick up and play titles for parties and get-togethers. But what if I told you that one of the greatest kart racers ever made is one most people today have never heard of? One that's completely broken the formula of kart racers and is still considered one of the most memorable kart racers, no, racing games of all time. With that being said, strap in because I'm ready to tell you all about Racing with Ryan. I'm just kidding, it's Snowboard Kids. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Xalem, this isn't a kart racer. There's no karts in it. Are you an idiot? And my answer to that question is yes, but that's not the point here. My point is, this is 100% a kart racer, and let me tell you why. Kart racers have dated all the way back to the 1990s, with the first game being Super Mario Kart. Wait, that's not right? Wait, hold on. Kart racers have dated all the way back to the 1990s, with the first technical kart racer being Power Drift, released in 1988 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And can we actually note how well this game looks for an NES game? Power Drift was the first game to feature kart racing, and set the basis for all kart racers after it. Due to hardware limitations, it was fairly simplistic as it was the standard get to the finish line as quick as possible. Drifting was the primary way of rounding turns, but Power Drift was about as simple of a racing game as you could get. It was visually impressive, but basically laid the groundwork for kart and racing games to come. No, kart racing really stood its ground in 1992 when Super Mario Kart released on the Super Nintendo, and this set the precedent for kart racers as we know today. Power-ups to enhance your gameplay, an optional drift mechanic, and more of a cartoony style than your typical standard racer. If anything that had a kart in it was considered a racing game, then we could look at Gran Turismo Sport as the most visually impressive kart racer to date. That's not the case. Kart racers have become widely known for its wacky course design and unconventional gameplay mechanics. By adding in elements such as drifting, items, boosting, or whatever it may be, developers can design a game with a degree of difficulty easily accessible to younger players, yet attainable by video game veterans. So how do Snowboard Kids come into the mix? These kids are on snowboards, so how does that justify them being called kart racers? Well, my answer to that is, when has that ever stopped other companies from making a karting game? Mario Kart Wii has scooters. Diddy Kong Racing has airplanes, so what's stopping Snowboard Kids from being considered a karting game? This is Snowboard Kids, released on December 12th, 1997 and developed by Atlas, who when they weren't making games about fighting a demonic little snowman, they were making games about demons and snowmen. And you better put that marker down, that was a Persona 1 reference. Snowboard Kids play similar to SSX, SSX being an extreme snowboarding game where you perform tricks down a mountain to race to the bottom as fast as you can. And that actually came out 3 years after Snowboard Kids, but it's the closest reference I've got, okay? But Snowboard Kids is different from that, as it takes a more cartoony approach while still playing similarly to other kart racers like Mario Kart and Diddy Kong Racing. Along the way through courses, you have items you can use to stall your opponents. Wacky course design that doesn't make sense in a conventional racing game. Snowboard Kids was not as popular as these other two mainline titles, but was successful enough to warrant a sequel simply titled Snowboard Kids 2. A+ job to the guy at Atlas that came up with that name. You get a gold star. But I think there are 3 things that make Snowboard Kids as iconic and memorable as it is today. These things would not only break the conventional formula, but be passed down and inspire many games after it in the karting series. Movement and gameplay is rather unconventional compared to kart racers new and old, but still remains as simple as it gets. You start out at the top of the mountain and you race towards the bottom as you'd expect. However, there's one major difference between Snowboard Kids and other karting games, and that's due to the fact that you don't directly control your character's speed. Instead of using the A button to accelerate, you'd naturally go down the mountain on your own, similar to games like Kirby Air Ride and Sonic Riders. This made the game far more accessible to newcomers of video games, yet gave room for more skilled players to develop their skills. It's pretty simplistic, especially in the earlier levels. However, as levels progressed further and further, timing your jumps to make sharp turns or access shortcuts became a true challenge. Tricks were also implemented because, let's be honest, who would actually buy a snowboarding game if you couldn't perform tricks? You could flip by moving the control stick while pressing the A button, or press the C buttons to perform taps in the game, which was later improved in Snowboard Kids 2 with the implementation of the parry mechanic. If an item was coming towards you, you could attempt to deflect the incoming item to backfire it at your opponent. Performing tricks and board taps would net you money throughout the course, which leads me to my next subject. Money also plays a factor in this game, so you'd think there's an in-game shop that the more tricks you perform and the more points you rack up, the more money you can spend outside the normal gameplay. And now while all of that is technically correct, you keep forgetting that this is motherfucking Snowboard Kids! Alongside having in-game shopping, money is directly related to the power-ups and items within the race. Unlike your normal Kart Racer, items aren't simply scattered across for you to pick up. Each item costs $100 to purchase within a race, and if you don't have enough money, then you're out of luck. On top of this, players can hold 2 items at once, one used as a weapon and the other used as an aid, usable by the A or Z buttons. Now this isn't a downplay Mario Kart Double Dash, but they definitely were not the first to do the dual item mechanic. Money can also be stolen from other players using the Wrap power-up, which helps in times of crisis, but as far as the other items, they're actually fairly well balanced and are well integrated within the game. The Snowman power-up turns you into a snowman where you can't move at all. The Parachute, which is my personal favorite, rockets you into the air, and if you're on the edge of the cliff, well, let's just say that's a long way down. Pots and pans can smack opponents, while the board invisibility can prevent pots and pans from hitting you. If you get hit with an item while going towards an item box, you could end up trading your very valuable item for something almost useless in your current position. In comparison to games like Mario Kart and Diddy Kong Racing, this item balance was surprisingly well thought out and full of personality, which leads me to my final point. How do we take the design of this game and put it on par with other big name hitters? For one, these menus are super clean. They're nothing flashy by any means, but they're not confusing in the slightest, and it's so easy to navigate without wasting any time at all. But what about the characters? The first game has 5, with one being unlockable, all of them vastly different from one another. Slash is definitely the standout with his spiky hair and goggles, who would later make a guest appearance as the guitarist in The Devil Went Down to Georgia 2. But my favorite character personally is Linda. She's the spoiled rich kid with fast speed but not too tight of handling, plus I'm just prone to characters that like to act like a bitch. Course design is top notch as well. It starts out pretty simple as your first level is just snowboarding down a mountain, but as the game progresses, it transitions into this grassy valley, snowboarding through this sandy desert. Honestly, not bad course design, but nothing too memorable. But this is where the second game shined. You started off with another simple snowboarding level and then immediately changed to this beach level where you race underwater in actual beach costumes, which was another thing that the second game added. Alternate costumes. Going through different levels throughout the story would change your outfits to match the season or event. Whether it be Halloween or even going to space where the gravity is heavily reduced, this game had a lot of thought put into it for a game released in the late 90s. But the main mechanic that separated Snowboard Kids from the pack is often overlooked, and it's the lap mechanic. Instead of racing through 3 laps, you race towards the end goal. However, at the end, the race isn't over, but instead board a ski lift to start another lap. Simple in concept, but in practice, this leads to this intense battle to be the first to the lift, cutting in line to try to make it up first. I haven't seen a mechanic like this replicated in another game, but I'd love to see it practice somewhere, or maybe even see it in another Snowboard Kids game, I don't know. Snowboard Kids is near and dear to me because it has so much heart and personality. If I had to make one criticism of the series, it's that once you've played Snowboard Kids 2, it's hard to go back and play 1 because it's such an improvement on every single aspect. The second game built off of the first game on every little detail. An integrated story mode with comedic cutscenes, more unlockable characters, more intricate levels, board movement allowed for more tricks, and a more fleshed out shop with tons of boards. And again, costumes were not very commonplace in this generation of games. I especially love the addition of boss battles, which were added in as a story element. Fighting against a giant snowman and a dinosaur is a welcome change of pace, and guess what? We still don't see in many kart racers today. It's such an influential title that doesn't get enough love. I would love to see a sequel or reboot of this amazing series on new generation consoles, but it'd be hard to capture that heart that the series is known for. A sequel for this series did actually come out by Atlus in 2005, but it resembled nothing of the original game and felt like a quick, easy cash grab. I mean, just look at this. Oh my god. Well, that was Snowboard Kids, and my reasoning why it should be considered one of the most influential karting games of all time. If you like what you saw, tune in next week as I tackle why Puyo Pop Fever should be considered a survival horror game. And if you really like what you saw, tune in the week after that when I talk about one of my favorite post-apocalyptic run-and-gun shoot-'em-up 3D RPGs, Boogie on the motherfucking Wii.